All right. So here we are once again, another YouTube live for February, the last one. This is probably my sixth. I'm trying to add a new microphone. So let me know how that works. And we're going to talk a few things. I got a couple of emails, some comments, and I'm going to deal with those. First and foremost, I want to start talking about the skyrocketing cost of renovations. Now, if you've noticed over the last 3 years, costs have gone way up, not just during the pandemic, but they're still pretty high afterwards. There's a few reasons for this. Material costs went crazy during the pandemic. We're talking about two by fours were like at one point we were paying $11.30 for them. Excuse me. Now they're back down to something reasonable. I haven't bought one in a few weeks, so I don't know exactly what it is, but I know we were under $5, which was mind blowing based on where we were, maybe a year ago. But there's more to it than the skyrocketing costs of materials. I mean, we can just talk about, say, electrical. I know my electrician is paying four times what he was uh, prior to the pandemic for just regular 14.2 wire. So that's the wire that's running your house that would be running your basement that you would be buying at Home Depot or whatever. It's quadruple the cost, which is going to be passed on to the consumer, right? I know that drywall, a five, a 4x8 sheet of drywall 5 years ago was like $9. Now it's over 17, and it's still going up. That's not. We're talking about like drywall mud. Just your regular drywall compound was $20 for a box. Now it's $30 for a box, depending on the one you're getting. So these are costs that are going up that are being passed on to the consumer. There's another element to this that is being passed on to the consumer, and that's wages. Wages have not moved in almost the 20 years that I was around. I'll use an example of the company that I was with before. We were advertising for a lead carpenter. We were going to pay $28 to $32 an hour, which at the time, was pretty reasonable. And we've seen incremental, like small growth in wages, but not a lot. So if you look at it, every $5 an hour is $10,000. So if somebody's making $32 an hour, that's like just under $65,000 for a lead carpenter. Once I left my company, which is like 18 months ago, the same company that I was working for was advertising for $40 an hour for a lead carpenter and still getting no one. What happens is companies, we would interview somebody and they would come in, we would make them an offer, they would accept the position at a higher pay, and then they would go tell their boss, hey, I'm leaving. And then their boss would offer them again more money than we offered them to stay because it costs more money to retrain an employee. So issues of scale are a main reason that I left my business because we could not scale because you can't find people. So the increase in your renovation costs is also a result of the increase in the cost of labor, of wages going up. So if you think what should a lead carpenter be making? So let's say you think a lead carpenter where I live in Guelph, Ontario should be making 70 to 75 grand. Okay, awesome. So that's 30 to $35 an hour. No, that's over $35 an hour, close to $40 an hour. Now add to that your vehicle costs and all of that. Like for us to put a new truck on the road with two people in it was like 200 grand because we're thinking of two people, the truck and all of that. That cost is now being passed on to the consumer. There's another element. We are seeing fewer and fewer people go into the trades. So the simple fact of supply and demand is allowing contractors to go, hey, there's nobody around. There isn't going to be the ones who realize that there isn't going to be anyone around for the foreseeable future. So I'm in high demand. The level of work, maybe the demand for work has tailed off a bit, but still the supply of people being able to do the work is still super low. So they're able to, just from a sheer supply and demand point of view, they're able to charge more. If you look at it this way, let's do the math. Let's say 20% of carpenters or of contractors are good, 60% are okay, 20% are bad. Now, agree or disagree with that math, but where this is just an exercise. If you look at it and say, all right, let's say there were 20 contractors available, 20% of that means there's four really good contractors out there that I could use. Okay, well, now let's shave that down to 15. Well, now there's three really good contractors you could use. And the lower you get, the fewer and fewer like people in the trades, there's fewer and fewer good tradespeople out there. And those good tradespeople are going to charge more simply out of supply and demand. So if you are noticing the quotes you're getting are astronomical, well, that's because costs are crazy. I talked to one contractor whose quote for a basement apartment was $230,000. Now, this was a big basement apartment. They did have to cut out the extra entrance, they had to cut in the doorway, they were upgrading the electrical panel, but that's still a ton of money. A basement apartment 3 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe you're looking at $90,000. That price is out the window now. So, Daryl, who is a frequent commenter and listener, said timing is everything in the post that he put in today. Yeah, timing does matter, but you are going to see your average costs going up in renovation, even versus pre-pandemic, even if you throw away the highs of the pandemic. Something else to think about is in the middle of the pandemic, when prices were at their highest, we were never busier. So what it showed people is that the market can sustain that price. So that price for some people has stuck around. Now, if you're hiring a plumber, gas, all that stuff, all those things add up. So you're paying for those. So when you get a renovation quote and you get sticker shock that makes you want to barf, that's part of the reason. The other is just if you could charge more, wouldn't you? If you told your boss, yeah, I want to make 10 grand more and he gave it to you, wouldn't you take it? So you don't mind paying for the good ones and understanding what you're getting. You don't want to get the mediocre or bad ones and be paying the same price. That sucks. That is point number one for the YouTube live. So last week we talked about client red flags, which is, not a pleasant thing. And if you're a person who is doing some of those things, my uh, purpose was not to put you on blast, but just to educate you on what the person on the other side of that conversation might be thinking. Now, contractor red flags, there's tons of them, and I've done a video on how to hire a contractor. I've done the video with Dev about his concerns. So let's touch on a few of these going forward. And I'll be doing a video about something similar later on when I get the time. Is if the contractor brings up in your first meeting, if you want to pay cash, that's a red flag. I don't know them. Why am I going to pay you cash? Cash means you don't exist. Tailgate warranty applies. And if you're wondering what a tailgate warranty is, if I didn't say this last week, a tailgate warranty is once you can't see the tailgate anymore, the warranty doesn't apply. So even if somebody says, I'll give you my word, a handshake agreement, if you've never done business with them before, that handshake agreement means nothing. I firmly believe, even in people I've done business with and the people I continue to do business with, there is always a written agreement in some way, shape, or form, however basic it is, that outlines I'm paying this for that. Randy's saying, I'm not dreaming. I can do work that's just as good, but I'd be fired day one for spending 10x as long making things perfect coming in here. So that's just how it works. Yes, time is important. You're paying for speed. When you hire somebody, you are not paying them to take a long time to do it. You want them to be good and fast. So that costs more, right? There's a triangle: cost, quality, time. You can get two of those more than likely. Getting all three means you hit the most amazing trifecta in life. Oftentimes, if you're going to hit all three, it's because you have a contractor who is young, who doesn't know what to charge, and they want to do good work. So they will put the time in to make it work, be good, be fast, and then they don't charge enough. And that's how we've all learned in the businesses. We start charging more because we don't make enough money because we're trained to be contractors, not business people. That is the second lesson we learn as we go along. But let's go back. Contractor red flag. Somebody says pay cash, tailgate warranty applies. Remember that term, tailgate warranty. So then next we are talking about if they mention, and this is the opposite of some of the ones I mentioned in the other one. If they mention that they don't have to get a permit, I mean, we could, but we're not. That's a red flag to me. So why aren't you getting the permit? There are cases like here in Guelph where technically every bathroom you are supposed to get a permit. Now, the city actually doesn't want that because now they're already overbooked and they're coming out to like look at a tub that the plumber is putting in. So in that scenario, sometimes we have not gone ahead and gotten a permit. But if it's a scenario where you're doing something big, you're doing your basement, you're doing anything structural, you're doing anything that would require a construction drawing instead of guessing in conversations, 100% you get a permit in my mind because you want to protect yourself. No matter how trustworthy the contractor is, no matter what their references are, make sure you're having those details covered. Another element, and I think I touched on this in my video with Dev and then how to hire a contractor, is just their visibility. And what I mean by that is like how easy are they to find if you punch them in on Google? If they come up and they have a website or they have a Facebook page, if they have the logo on their truck, if they have the email address on their truck, if they have company shirts, something that shows you that they're walking around with that brand being shown, however rinky dink it is a statement that they are putting themselves out into the world, and anything bad or negative that comes out about them is a stain on that name. You do have guys who shut down a company under one name and open it under another. And I know I've seen those. And they manage to salesy, navigate their way around why this company is not that company, or they literally change one letter and they use the same logo, but they're defunct as a company. So what happens is they stiff all their trades that they owe money to. They're like, hey, we're bankrupt. Yeah, but you're still in business. No, new business. Sorry, we can't pay you. I've seen that. And we're talking that one is one that I know ruined other companies, like almost put other companies out of business, put some smaller companies out of business. We're talking like six figures in debt to small businesses. And when a small business is, you owe somebody $10,000 and they're a small business, that has the potential to put them out of business because most small businesses don't have the cash flow to carry themselves, for a month or eat 10 grand, which is a crazy amount of money. So those are a few of the contractor red flags. I mean, they're all over the internet, and maybe I'll touch on some of those, but just a lot of the things that you hear, there's a reason for them, and nobody wants to be that statistics. So contractor red flags is something I will touch on. As my YouTube feed has gotten a little more complex over the years, I get sort of the other renovation YouTube channels in my feed. And for a period there, I had a bunch of them that were talking about how to drywall like a pro. And what I will say to that is no. If anybody thinks, hey, you're going to watch a video and use these techniques and be able to drywall like a guy who does it for years, just using hand tools, and you've never done it before, that is I almost negligently misleading. Because, as a layman in the beginning, I was just like, you know what? I'll just sand it and it'll all be flat. It's not going to be. It is super difficult to board and tape. It's not complicated, but the dexterity of using the tools, having the right tools, using the right mud mixture, hanging the board properly. A lot of the result of the taping is hanging the board properly. Do you know to V-notch your butt joints? Do you know not to put butts and bevels together? Do you have there is, oh, my dog. Hold on a second. Let's get rid of the dog. All right. Sorry about that. We're back. And there's a lot of little details, how to put in the screws, all these things that when you're taping, when you're coating it with the mud, they make a big, big difference. You don't want floating butt joints and all that stuff. So, sorry, his town inspector has no building inspector. I was telling him to get someone at least. I told him to go buy the IRC and NEC books. Depending on your province, Randy, some of them have inspectors, some do not. I grew up in Quebec. So everybody there has to be a licensed tradesperson, which is a bananas occurrence, and there are no inspections there. Whereas in Ontario, the liability is joint and several, and um, they that means the city is also liable for what's inspected. So there's a different form of accountability here, less of a black market. I don't know out in Saskatoon what the rules are there. I cannot speak to that, but there's different rules everywhere, and the building code is not always the friendliest to navigate. If there's somebody framing his house, then that person is assuming all responsibility. Or I would wonder what the liability is in that scenario, if it's a builder or if it's a contractor. Oh, New Hampshire. Sorry, Randy. Oh, I was thinking of Daryl. Daryl's in Saskatchewan. Yes, Vancouver Carpenter does a great job, and he doesn't lie to you. I shouldn't say lie to you. It's not clickbait. Vancouver Carpenter does an amazing job. The professionals watch him, and he does a good job of doing all these different tools and all these different things. And it is probably one of the channels that, if you're going to watch about drywall, is going to give you a really good idea of how hard it is to get it right. Because he's not only teaching the DIYers, he's teaching the pros. A lot of the pros I know have watched this stuff, because he goes out and he tries all of it, right? And he's curious. You can tell by what he's doing. He's got mock-ups he's doing in his living room. It's pretty crazy. Sorry, to go back to Randy, your point. I would talk to the builder or the framing contractor to say who the liability is on for ensuring that these things meet your local building code. And that's where the responsibility lies. That's your protection, right? So if there's no inspection being done, who's the contractor? How is he ensuring that liability is being met? And how is that enforceable? Those would be the questions I would be asking. But to go back, drywall like a pro. Drywall is, I mean, guys spend $10,000 in tools getting a bazooka and a 10-inch box and an 8-inch box and the Merca sanders and all of that stuff. I mean, yeah, taping is awful, Randy. If you don't have the tools, once you have the tools, it's a lot, I shouldn't say easier, but it goes a lot smoother, no pun intended. And you understand why it can be so rewarding or soothing almost, as you're running like a 12-inch box over your butt joints and just going like, understanding how hard that is to do by hand, and that the machines make it so much easier, but you're spending $15,000 for all the tools. One of the guys I know just started using a 7-inch flat box to do all his bevels, and he did my last job, and I was blown away because he goes, it takes away an extra step and it leaves it extra creamy. And then when I run my 12-inch box, I don't have to do anything else. And then it's a little bit of touch-ups. But yeah, when I see these videos that are telling people that you can tape like a pro, Vancouver Carpenter doesn't tell you you're going to tape like a pro. And I got a ton of respect for that guy, and just the volume of content he puts out, knowing how hard it is just for me to do this once a week. It's mind-boggling, right? I got an email or a question about if you're in a warmer climate, what insulation to use on your basement walls. Now, I don't know a lot about this, so my first impression was thinking about using some rigid insulation. and adhering it to your concrete walls and taping the edges, foaming it, making sure it's all tight. That was my first instinct. I don't know if that's right. My thought would be to talk to whoever is in your area that does that type of work and asking what product they use. They can tell you what product it is. There should be no reason that they can't tell you what product it is. It's anybody can go buy all these products. It's not that easy to put them in, as we're just talking about taping, right? So that's one. I looked into getting affiliate links for all the products that I'm talking about and the things I'm recommending, the things I use. But apparently, my channel is not big enough to qualify with Amazon, Lowe's, or Home Depot. So I need to figure out how to make a list and have it available on my website. The other thing I'm going to try to do or figure out how to do and will do is some of the spreadsheets that I've made, which, if anybody can give me any feedback, whether they were helpful or not, that would be awesome, because I'd like to make them better. I'm going to try to find a way to post them on the website so people can just download them and I don't have to approve or like share them with everybody, that they can just have it. That is a technical ability I do not have, that I will have to probably pay somebody to do, which, whatever, that's not a big deal. So no affiliate links. No, like, I'm not going to be able to say, click this link and you'll be able to buy it, because we're not big enough. Yeah, me, however it is. One bit of exciting stuff that I got, my radon test showed up this week. I got to cover my address here. My radon test showed up. So I'm going to be putting that into my living room and making a video on that in the near future. So apparently it needs to be in my living room for 90 days. And then you send it away to get the test results. I think it's 90 days. So we're going to do a fun thing of that. So what would that put us at? 3 months from now is what? June. So I can't wait for June. So that's what I have so far. Does anybody have any questions I can answer, or should I just fill the next 8 minutes with me rambling on about other stuff? What are the other sort of questions I got this week? What was Daryl talking about? Oh, Daryl messaged me and he was talking about how his dad would often do jobs for cash and it would come back to haunt him. And he said, and I got permission from him to talk about his post in this. What he was talking about was like anything over $1,000, get a contract. I mean, you don't need a contract. You need a quote that outlines the scope of work. I don't necessarily agree with the dollar amount. I think it can be lower, right? You're going to pay a plumber $500 to put in a toilet, right? If you go to your website, like here in Canada, a decent toilet, the dual flush toilets that we used, they're $300. You're going to pay a service fee to the plumber to put it in. It's usually 2 hours, so it's probably going to be about $140 for him to put it in. And then you have the supply line and the wax ring. So there you are for it. Hold with air and water tests are definitely a good idea. We find out our arsenic levels are 20 times over the limit. Whoa. You know what I learned? I grew up in Montreal and we didn't deal with I was young, so I didn't really know a lot. When I moved to Guelph, where I am, I didn't know what hard water is. And in Guelph, hard water is a big problem. So people were talking to me about water softeners. I had no idea what a water softener was. So different areas are going to have different issues. When you move to a new area, you'll want to talk to whoever the real estate agent is, or the home inspector, or whatever you're having done, to know in that area are there any special considerations that you don't have elsewhere, like arsenic or hard water, iron levels or something in other places that are an issue. Growing up in Montreal, the floods, right? Montreal's an island, so you end up with water levels rising and basements flooded all the time. So be sure to try to educate yourself on what the differences are in your area. Sometimes even in your own neighborhood, right? You could live at the bottom of the hill or the top of a hill or something like that, and the water issues are totally different from one to the other. But to go back to what I was talking about before with Daryl, if you're going to hire somebody, have something that outlines the scope of work and makes what you're doing and what they're doing more clear, right? I've said this before. I can't remember where. I say it frequently, and I said it used to say it a lot with my clients, which was specifically with regards to change orders during projects was I want to get paid for what I do, and you don't want to pay for things you don't want. So we would always have written approval on the change orders. The softwares we used then, and that more and more younger contractors will be using now. The change order has an approve button. So the software will integrate a change order. So you let's say you added another wall of paint, right? You say, look, now I want an accent wall over there, or you want a barn board wall around where your TV is going to be, or you want to add a gas fireplace. Well, I'm not going to ballpark that at Ruffin and bill you later. I'm going to go get a price. I'm going to send you that price, and you're going to approve it before I do anything because I want to get paid for what I do. And you don't want to pay for anything you didn't want done. So if I send you something for a gas fireplace and then we put in an electric fireplace and I send you the same bill, well, that's not what you wanted. So be sure to articulate, no matter how small it is, say, I'm paying you this for X service, right? Their quotes should be telling you that, or estimates or whatever it is, should have some type of description of scope of work. Even if it's a landscaper, I'll mow your lawn 17 times in the summer. Okay, great. For this price. You want things to be itemized or outlined so that you are getting what you pay for. Cash is not king. It's funny because as a contractor, my accountant was talking to me. Cash is not the greatest thing in the world. Everybody has this myth around cash. Well, the idea behind cash is to hide the money, that it isn't visible, that what is happening didn't happen. It just appeared. And nobody is responsible. So that way nobody has to pay taxes. Well, here in Ontario and Canada, there's HST and all that stuff. So, sorry, this is very good advice. Even as an engineer, our company sometimes get hit by customers changing the scope of work. Oh, as an engineer, I would imagine, and even from experience, that scopes of work change, and I can really identify with what you just put in there. We get scope of work changes. It took me a decade almost to avoid this problem. When scope of work changes, we stop, we slow down. Even if it's just for a day, right? Some things only take a day, but we can get them even with on your mobile device, sometimes even less, right? I can get you a change order if it's the morning. You want to deleting something is the easiest. So I can delete something. But I think Daryl put it best in his post when he said, you don't want that. Yeah, but I thought as the words that come out of your client's mouth, because now you've had a miscommunication that's going to cost somebody money and going to leave somebody unhappy or disappointed. So I want things articulated. What often, I shouldn't say often happen, what's happened sometimes is something gets left out. And here's a logic that you can take with you as we wrap this up. Let's say I'm quoting something and I quote, we're going to paint this room, right? And I don't include painting the door and the trim there, back there. And then I come and I paint the room and I say, okay, we're done. And you're like, yeah, but you didn't paint the trim. I say, oh, I didn't include that in my quote. Well, I want to paint it. Okay, well, it's going to be an extra amount of dollars. Why would it be extra? Well, take a step back. If I'm the contractor and I know it's extra work, I would have given you that as part of the quote. It's my mistake. Totally my mistake. But I'm not going to do it for free. You know what I'm saying? Okay, well, I wouldn't, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't turn to that person and go, "Well, guess what? I'll paint all your trim and doors for free." That's like 300 bucks at least. Painting the room's 300 bucks. The trim, which I got to get on my knees and caulk and do all of that, and the door, painting a door is one of the bigger pains in the butt, and it's probably 100 bucks, 150 bucks just to paint the door. So, if client says, "Yeah, no, I want that for free," I would just say no, because you would have had to paid for it before. And if you go, oh, well, I would have never accepted the quote. Well, okay, well, here we are. So now are you going to stiff the guy for painting the room and not the trim? And this is what you want to avoid. You want to avoid these little miscommunications. So the really good painters I know will come in and say, okay, you want to paint the room. Okay, are we painting the ceiling? And sometimes the client will get irritated, like, yeah, of course we're painting the ceiling. Well, some people say no. How much does it cost to paint the ceiling? Well, the ceiling's another paint. You're using ceiling paint, not just wall paint. So that's extra cost and extra labor because now you got to cut everything in. You got to cut in the ceiling and the walls. And you got to cover the floors. When you're painting the walls, you're just covering the edges, right? You got a drop sheet that you drag along. Are we painting the doors and trim? No. Yes. Right? You want to make sure you articulate your scope of work at all times and get as detailed as possible so that you get what you pay for and the contractor gets paid for what he does, because people who are happy and getting paid will do better work. So that is my lesson for today. I think I might try to do more of these. I don't know. I haven't decided. My wife's pretty supportive of it, so we'll keep it going. I'm going to try to get out more videos in the next little bit, but I've taken a job where I work during the day, so I can't just futz around on making YouTube videos. I have to be a little more dedicated. And I'm really waiting to get to the summer so I can open up my garage and build that little workshop so I can go through the whole process of how to frame walls, hang a door, do trim, hang drywall, resilient channel, furring track, all that stuff. The building bulkheads, I can actually do the how-to stuff. I just need my garage to be empty of all the stuff that I need to do in the winter, and then I can do that. So for everybody who tuned in, I want to say thank you for stopping by and good luck on your project.